time for the second annual Centy Awards. This is the first time, though, that we've done it on YouTube. Last year we blogged at my123cents.blogspot.com. Our first award is Wrestler of the Year, and I went with CM Punk for obvious reasons. He was the WWE Champion for more than a year, held the title all through 2012. Presumably he will hold it for the next 3 days as we are taping this on December 28th. He had a stellar year, beating Dolph Ziggler, Chris Jericho, Daniel Bryan, Kane, John Cena, The Big Show, who am I missing? Ryback, although the Ryback victory was a little tainted, but nonetheless, CM Punk, in my opinion, deserves the honor, and we are saying Wrestler of the Year and not Superstar of the Year.
Right. And I mean, CM Punk is a good choice, although the fact that even though he's been champion for over a year, it wasn't until about 2 months ago that him being champion was really a focal point in WWE. So I went on the other side of the national scene and went with Austin Aries, who was the TNA X Division champion and world champion for a few months. But the show was kind of built around him chasing the gold, or chasing the bigger gold, I guess, when he was X Division champion and then becoming world champ. And he's really been a bright spot in TNA over the past year. And when he re-signed with TNA back in 2011, I think it was. I didn't expect much out of him because he'd already been there a couple times and hadn't done anything, but Austin Aries has really stepped up his performance and I think is making the most of his runs.
Our next category is Most Hated, and while we don't necessarily want to use the word hate, it's the wrestler, the performer that if they were to leave the business tomorrow, they wouldn't necessarily be missed.
Exactly. You know, this is a kind of a, I don't know, it's a controversial category. It's more of a, I think, more of a smarky category. It's just us being like, hey, we don't like these guys, and I don't know if anybody's going to agree with us or not, but probably not.
Go with your pick.
My pick is twofold. The two guys that I just have never understood the appeal of them in the wrestling world, one on the main stage and the other on the indie scene, and that is Randy Orton and Davy Richards. Randy Orton is just very bland, the only thing I can say is his matches are at least less bland. Davy Richards embodies everything that I hate about independent wrestling, and his strong style, no selling. Davy Richards, I wish you would have stuck to your plan of retirement 2 years ago.
I went kind of in a different direction with this, and I picked Brooke Hogan, and you know, no offense to Hulk Hogan, I was a Hulkamaniac growing up. I think that the Hulkamania wave has come and gone, but I'm kind of picking on his daughter because I think she's in her position in TNA because of her dad. I don't think she really is that big of a fan of wrestling. I don't think she really belongs in TNA or in a high-profile position. And full disclosure here, I haven't watched TNA in a few weeks now. The last time I was watching, she and Bubba Ray, or Bully Ray, were involved in some sort of love angle. I just think she's a horrible actress, or her performances. Please do not let her get in the ring and wrestle in 2013. The most underappreciated, and I went with Pac from the indie scene. He is now wrestling in WWE Developmental as Adrian Neville. I got to meet Pac earlier in the year at Main Event with AAPW, and to me, he was a stand-up guy. I'm glad to see he is finally signed with Developmental, so maybe picking him as most underappreciated isn't accurate, but for most of the year I felt like he was kind of, you know, ignored by the big boys.
I ended up coming up with an entire group of people, and that is the entire roster of SHIMMER. SHIMMER being the all-female wrestling promotion based out of Illinois. They've been around for, I think, 6-7 years, something like that, and they only do, like, I think, 8 tapings a year. So they're not really high profile themselves, but I think just the way that the women's wrestling is seen in America, that the SHIMMER promotion itself is overlooked because, you know, mainstream fans see what's in WWE, the divas in the WWE, the knockouts in TNA, and think that's all there is to women's wrestling. Yeah. And really, there is a whole group of women out there who can go toe-to-toe with a bunch of the guys that are in the indie scene. So my pick is the SHIMMER promotion.
And we go from most underappreciated to the most overrated, and we both had different opinions on this one too.
This one was kind of tough too, because just trying to think of who is over, you know, who the fans just really clamor behind. But I had to go with Jeff Hardy. Just not, you know, I think Jeff Hardy had his place in wrestling history, and he's certainly got a Hall of Fame career, but in 2012, I'm just ready for the next generation to come along.
I was split on this one between Randy Orton and my eventual pick, which was Alberto Del Rio. I just have not been able to get into the character, the gimmick. When I look at most overrated, I guess I'm going from a company perspective and not so much the fans, because I don't know if the fans are completely behind him in that attempt at a face turn a few weeks ago. I think he's back to being a heel. He ran over Santa Claus and he wrestled John Cena on Raw. So I'm assuming he's back to being a heel, but we'll keep an eye on that and see what happens. The breakout star of the year for me, I think we both picked. Mr. Touchdown from Chikara Pro. Stellar year, Young Cup champion.
Top banana champion in Wrestling is Fun. Just kind of came out of nowhere and has really made a name for himself in the Chikara universe.
Mm-hmm.
I see big things in his future, and like I said, from the rafters, I could see him at least challenging for the Chikara Grand Championship by the end of 2013.
Yeah, and we talked to Leonard F. Chikarson a few months ago on From the Rafters, and he actually had high praise for Mr. Touchdown as well, saying that this is not the end of the road for him by any means. Not that there's anything wrong with being in Chikara and Wrestling is Fun. He is a talented performer. Show of the year. For me, I'm biased with this one. This was AAPW main event. It was my wrestling debut. It was a very memorable night for me for a number of reasons, not just because of the wrestling. It was our biggest crowd, 405 people, which doesn't sound like a lot, but for an indie show that was drawing about 100 people a pop, we quadrupled our audience basically. And it was just a fun night. I got to meet Colt Cabana, Generico, Pac, Matt Cross, a lot of talented guys in our AAPW locker room at the time as well. It was just a really fun and exciting night.
And that was a good show as well, so I can see why you chose that one. I went with TNA's Bound for Glory, or Impact Wrestling's Bound for Glory. I still don't know what the name of the company is, but Bound for Glory is their biggest show of the year, and being there in Phoenix this year, it was just a very loud crowd, it was a smaller arena than what WrestleMania is held in, obviously,
sure.
But the 3,000 or so people that were packed into the arena were just very vocal the entire night. It was just a very electric atmosphere, and when Devon was revealed as the mystery Aces and Eights competitor, and the crowd started chanting, "This is awkward." You kind of got the best of the mainstream audience in just being into the stars, but then you got the best of the indie part with creative chants and whatever. And nobody on that show dogged it. The James Storm, Robert Roode street fight was off the charts, violent. The tag match with Sting and Bully Ray was great, and the main event of Austin Aries and Jeff Hardy was incredible. So I go with Bound for Glory.
By the way, I won my match and I am retired undefeated as a professional wrestler. Moving on, I don't have my glasses on, so I can't see the Star on the Horizon. I'm really blind. Star on the Horizon.
He's not here yet, so he's on the horizon.
Yeah, he's on the horizon. We cannot see him. For me, I went with another independent wrestler who has had national exposure, though, in 2012, and that is Heath Hatton. You may know him as Jay Hatton on the WWE Extreme Rules pay-per-view. He and Aaron Relic teamed up, another local indie guy, Ace Hawkins, teamed up against Ryback at Extreme Rules pay-per-view. They were squashed, but, Heath wrestled also in AAPW against NWA World Heavyweight Champion Adam Pearce in a really great, exciting, action-packed match. He is signed on to be a part of Pro Wrestling Collision, a local independent wrestling group in Southern Illinois. This guy has the potential. He's got a great future ahead of him. I also want to mention Matt Cage and Christian Rose. I didn't mention them from AAPW 0 Hour from earlier when I was talking about card of the year, but those guys as a tag team are great. Individually, they're great as well. I see big things on the horizon for a lot of the local indie talent as well.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you that, especially here in the Southern Illinois market, not being from this area now, I don't get a chance to see these guys as often, but every match that I've seen them in, I've really been impressed, and I hope that they do get a chance for bigger exposure. But my picks for Star on the Horizon are two guys who have gotten a little bit more exposure on the national scene, and that is Michael Elgin, who wrestles for Ring of Honor and Pro Wrestling Guerrilla, and Willie Mack, who's primarily in the West Coast PWG Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. Both guys are powerhouses. Willie Mack's a little bit more agile than you would expect from a big man, and I think both have the personality and the talent that, if given the chance, they will be huge stars within the next 5 years. And I can see both of them being signed to either WWE or TNA.
Well, keep an eye on those guys. Female of the year.
You know, I have to go with Sarah Del Rey just because she is the all-around best women's wrestler. Unfortunately, she is now signed to WWE and is working as a trainer down in NXT instead of being on the roster as an active competitor. But I don't think there's any other wrestler that I am aware of. And again, like I said, I'm not familiar with Shimmer.
Right.
I'm sure they have somebody who could go, can make the claim for best female of the year. But I'm going with Sarah Del Rey.
I'm going with my crush here, and that is Miss Tessmacher.
Miss Delicious.
The former Knockouts champion in TNA Impact Wrestling. She's really evolved, I think, no pun intended, with what she did in WWE, where she was more of a dancer, I guess. Yeah. And I don't think did she wrestle in WWE? I don't really recall.
Maybe 1 or 2 matches, maybe
but
Battle Royals. Maybe.
Yeah, she's really come into her own, and is somebody to keep an eye on too, I think, for the upcoming year. Best use of social media. This was a no-brainer for both of us. We both picked
the Batiri. Anybody who is not following at the Batiri on Twitter or liking them on Facebook is missing out. The Batiri are 2 demons and a goblin prince, and they play these characters to the hilt.
Very well.
I don't even know if they're characters anymore. They may actually be. Thankfully, they spared the world and did not end it on 12/21 like they had planned. I guess they were wrestling in Cleveland for AAPW and were distracted by one of the other groups in the company and missed the deadline for destroying the Earth, so now they have to wait another 1,000 years. But the best part of the Batiri is when fans don't get the humor and start complaining on Twitter about the Batiri, and then it just gives the Batiri more ammunition to go on.
Absolutely, and they're on Facebook as well. They have a website, and they have the mystery bags, which I did a video on that. I bought one a couple months ago, and they actually posted it on their website. So, a big shout out to them. They're very fan friendly, even though they do want to or have planned to destroy the world and kill us all. So appreciate that. Now, the biggest fall from grace, and we actually, this was somebody that we picked. We both picked the same guy with this one too, and Zack Ryder. We looked at superstars who maybe were pretty high on the hog at one point, and then have kind of fallen into obscurity. And Zack Ryder is a perfect example of that. He rode the wave. He started off basically on Superstars Online, not really doing much, to getting onto the main roster on Raw, SmackDown, won the U.S. title, lost it earlier this year, and now has kind of fallen back into obscurity.
Yeah, well, he kind of created his own hype by creating the Z True Long Island Story on YouTube, which was ahead of its time, because now WWE has several YouTube shows, but I think they were all started because of the success of Ryder's show. Unfortunately, you can say that the popularity of that show both helped and hurt him. Helped him get over with the crowd. The crowd were chanting for him before he even got onto TV.
Yeah.
But there's that theory that in WWE, if you get over without the company wanting you to get over, then they're going to punish you. And WWE kind of failed to capitalize and sustain the Zack Ryder movement. And I think Zack, from my point is, the Z True Hollywood Story, or True Long Island Story, is just kind of getting repetitive. I mean, I don't know when the last time was I watched the show.
And I'm Broski of the Week number 22, so it pains me to say that. To show you what a Broski I was, besides being Broski of the Week, my buddy Chris Hagstrom from Pro Wrestling Collision got me this last year for Christmas, so it's the Zack Ryder Gnome. So it pains us to say that about Zack Ryder, but obviously he has fallen from grace. We certainly hope not to fall from grace. We hope to maybe be able to award ourselves the social media award next year. We appreciate the fan support for sure.
Yeah, I mean, people that continue to read our blogs, even though over the last couple months we've kind of fallen off due to just lack of time, basically. So hopefully in the new year we will bring you better content and more.
Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to my 123 cents.